welcome to JMC Live. It is 9 p.m. Eastern here in the JMC Ministry Studios. We are on air today.
And what is the date?
That's a good question. What is the date? We have been so busy upgrading equipment here in the studio. Let me tell you what's in store.
Well, tell everybody what the date is.
Well, before I tell you about the date, because I still don't know what the day is. Okay, it is January 2013. Can you believe that?
What's the day?
2013.
You didn't say the date.
Today is Saturday. That's correct. But what is the date? And I have to check again. It's the 19th. Why did I do that? Because last week I said it was
September 25th.
Exactly. But anyway, so that's the exciting thing. So here's what's happening. We are in the process of, as you see, I got a haircut, and I didn't spike it this week because I've been so busy going crazy, getting stuff done. What we're doing is we're upgrading our hardware and software. We are in transition to getting to an HD level and better quality filming for you, for the show, for the program, so things will be really great. As you notice, we've transitioned now to using our banner behind us. We're not going to have the lower third because, well,
we do.
What we do for the interviews and things like that.
And sometimes we'll put the lower third up for, so you know who's talking. So
Miranda, can you tell us quickly, what's the word I'm looking for here? What is the most high-packed info, mantastic new word I came up with? I'll probably never be able to say it again. What's the most amazing thing that's coming up on the program this evening? What's the most amazing thing that we got in store tonight? We have a lot of topics.
I don't think
that we want to cover this evening.
It's amazing. It's
not always amazing. Yeah,
we got a lot of tough topics.
We got a lot of tough topics. Yeah, that's the key word. Tough topics this evening, coming to you tonight from JMC Ministry Studios for the JMC Live Show.
I think the biggest one is, of course, going to be about the new gun laws that Obama has now written into law.
I'm hearing about these gun laws at the college, and people are...
and we're going to talk about what happened in the late 1800s when the U.S. government took away weapons, rifles from Indians. And the massacre that happened at Wounded Knee. And how you can read about this and even watch a movie about it, because we actually own a movie that's called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, and it covers a lot of it covers that massacre and what happened, and really just shows that when the government disarms people, it doesn't turn out really good.
Okay. So, we're going to talk about gun control. That's the word, right?
Among other things.
Gun control. What else are we talking about? Okay, here's what else we're talking about this evening. For your listening, wonderful moments for this evening, we're going to cover so much material that it might actually blow your minds. We're going to talk about sex trafficking. We're going to be talking about the gun laws. We're going to be talking about so much more.
Christian persecution.
Christian persecution. We're going to be talking about so many different topics, different directions, things, whatnot, that it may actually blow your mind. So, breaking news that everyone's talking about is Algeria. We know there's a lot of people that have been...
23 hostages are now dead.
Yeah, a lot of people, have lost their lives because of this event. I want you to start praying diligently that, Christ can, ease the sufferings of the people. I was just on the phone. Yeah.
They're calling it the slaughter in Sahara.
All hostages. Yep, this is the new update.
All hostages. Well, yeah. All the remaining hostages that were left are dead. And I think all of the Al Qaeda terrorists are dead too. That were holding.
Yeah, they finally went in. What they did is they finally went in and tried to make certain that they can save the people, and it kind of went really bad. It went really bad.
It kind of went really bad. I love how you said kind of went bad. It went bad.
It went, it went really bad. Horrific. It wasn't as good as it could be. I don't know.
Americans died. People from other countries died, and we left it up to the Algerian government to handle all this, which I feel should not have been done.
Yeah. This is why, it's very, very important for Christians because it's something I have to talk about here in a minute. As Christians, I realize news stories like this are very disheartening and very troublesome. But these are kinds of stories where Christ can still be honored and still be talked about, because life is precious and there's so much more that we need to, you know, be focused and diligent on, because there are Americans all over the world. And this leads to a subject we're going to be talking about later on, in a combination of blogs, devotionals, videos about prayer. And this is something you need to be able to pray about. Pray for your leaders. Pray for the leaders in the other world. Pray for people in our military, other militaries, safe travels. There's like so much stuff going on. Now, in a weird, strange story that I just have to cover that wasn't on the list of things to talk about. What do you feel about hoarding, okay? Now, there's a show called Hoarders, and there's all this stuff going on. Well, here in Ohio...
And it makes me go berserk and clean my house.
This is why I want to talk about it, because Miranda's just going to... Yeah.
It gives me the creeps.
It gives Miranda the creeps.
Even though my house is clean, I will go clean my house again after watching a show like that.
Okay, so 300 animals, including pigeons, chickens, and rabbits, were removed from an Ohio home. Now, first of all, these are normal people that you could that go to your college, that work with you. Some of them are your relatives. The reason why I'm talking about this is not because of the shock horror of 300 animals removed from a home. What about the ministry opportunity that is so lacking to these people's lives? Because normally people that are hoarders are someone that has lost a loved one, someone that's lost a job, someone that
they've had some kind of
traumatic experiences happen in their life. So I'm asking you today, what can you do to be able to pray for people like that? Can you do that for me today? I want you to pray for this. This was in Dayton, Ohio. I want you to pray for Dayton, Ohio, that not only the animals and stuff and whatnot are
and also when you see these TV shows and you're watching these episodes, you know, those people definitely need prayer, because they're putting all their hopes and dreams and all their focus on things.
Yeah, and
they're
that's
so obsessed with things,
the point.
and they're just rotting.
Life is not about materialistic things, and the Bible is very clear that we're supposed to be about changing our lives so that these things in our lives, when they come and go, it's not such an emotional attachment. Like if I lose my little notepad here, say for instance this could be your mom or something, and she passes away. Reason why I'm mentioning that, we've had like 12 to 15 families in the last 8 days contact us for a loss of life, loss of a loved one. And while these are very traumatic experiences, Christ talks about walking on the water, and the disciples, were scared because
they thought he was a ghost.
They thought he was a ghost, and the waves are coming on, and it's kind of similar to grief. That it comes in waves, and you have to be prepared. Now, speaking about preparation, I know that some people would say this isn't in America. This isn't happening.
This is an American. He is an American.
That's my point. This man that you're looking at now, Saeed, is an American, and he's currently under court order.
No, he's in prison.
He's under court order in prison and been sentenced to die. What for, you might ask? For not only being a Christian, but for sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. In what country, Miranda?
Iran.
Iran.
And so far, nothing is really being done to try to save him. An American. I mean, we just lost. We've got the Benghazi thing that's happened. Now we've got all the hostages killed in Algeria, who some of them were Americans. We didn't go in there. No. And now we've got this American who is in prison, and he's been beaten. I mean, if you read the article, he has gone through horrible beatings so far. They've been threatening to kill him daily. They're just absolutely messing with his mind to the point where they're trying to make him go crazy. He has children. He is originally from Iran, but he came to America and became a citizen. Do you blame him? No. I mean, look what they're doing. I don't blame him for wanting to come to America and become a citizen. I mean, jeez. But
no.
But so far, all that's happened to try to help this man to get him free is 49 members of the House and Senate are, quote, urging the State Department to take action. That's all it's done.
Now, this one might remind you of another person that was in Iran, another pastor that was going through the same thing. I have to remind you
and he is going through the same thing.
Majority of our world is doing this to Christians today. That if you're not registered with the government, or if you have a certain version of the Bible, or if you're going on the street wanting to feed, which the example here in America is, if you go on the street to feed people and you don't have a food handler's license, you can get arrested because you're wanting to preach to people at the same time. If you're in California, if you have too many people that are in a home that isn't registered as a church, you can get that kicked out. There's just so much stuff that you have to be careful on how this subject matter is covered, because honestly, we are going into what I consider the last days. This is like a pre-entry into the last days, because honestly,
can I say something about
the
that?
world's not dark enough yet for it to be the last days. Because if it's the last days, we probably couldn't have this show anymore.
Well, wait a minute. It may not be the last days to us, but what about people that are in prison? It is the last days for them. It is the last days for them. The people that are being killed for their faith, it is the last days for them.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't say that it isn't, that we're not there yet, because to many in other countries, we're there.
Yep. And that's the point. When you have a story like this, which I know it just disconnects most Americans when I share about, well, I'm not in Iran, I'm not like that.
But this is an American.
This is an American citizen. And normally when you're in another country, you're supposed to get help. You're supposed to be able to be taken care of. When something bad happens, you can get involved with your embassy and get out and so on and so forth. But in this case, no.
Iran is not even recognizing that he is an American citizen. Iran is saying he's still an Iranian. That he's just, that's all he is. He belongs to them.
Oh, yeah. So, what I want you to do today, there will be a link in the video to the ACLJ article. I want you to, number one, I want you to share this article on your page. Number two, I want you to write on it. And number three, I want you to take action on convincing the House and the Senate to go for some pro-action to help get this man released. Because as Christians, this is a fellow brother in Christ. And when I was in the Coast Guard, when I had a job, now I'm here with my wife. When you have somebody in your family has a problem and they come to you, you find solutions. Well, this is the brother. I just gave you a solution. Here's the time for you to act. Everyone's always been asking us, hey, what can we do at JMC Ministries to act? Well, we're going to be having more stories like this where you can take action. Because I'm tired of just having a story and then that's it and then nothing happens. We're going to start doing even more in-depth things like this, working with other people to make certain that the stories come out, that the things are actually changed, and then people can make the difference that is needed, because that's the direction that we should go. Now, this next story is not what you think it is. The Blaze has a book called an X-rated book, but if you look at the picture, and I'm going to scroll down so you can see it, it's not what you think, and I scrolled down too far. The picture is this. A pop-up. No, it's not a pop-up. It's this. Look at this. And I'm just going to make it just the image here. Look at this. This is the Freedom from Religion Foundation again. Sex and the Obscenity in the Bible. And it's a picture of a Bible with a guy's hand in someone's...
Of a woman's skirt.
Jeremy. Of a woman's skirt. That's creepy. Now, why are they doing that? I'll tell you why they're doing that. They're doing that because of this simple story here. It's a story about how atheists want to point out, the Song of Solomon and a bunch of other books that are in the Bible and say everything's X-rated. It's all bad. You don't need to talk about it. You don't have anything to do with it. It's an evil book. This is something that we talked about a few years ago on the show, that as America continues to degrade, its moral decline, they're going to continue to find new ways to try and stop the Bible from being talked about at all. This is another literally low blow to keep Christians from being able to share the gospel.
And they're saying that the Bible should not be handed out to school kids, public school kids, because it's X-rated. So what is this atheist group doing? They're going to give away an X-rated book to school kids. They're going to give pornographic books to school kids because they say, well, if you're going to hand out the Bible, then we should be handing out this stuff too.
They're going to say that the book is dangerous and you don't need to read it. That's what they're trying to do. That's the point of their cover. Mm-hmm. And it's so deceptive, though. It's so creepy that they want to do such a behavior, and this is what needs to end. This is what needs to stop, because we need to make that, we need to wake up and stop changing this whole way of thinking that we have it, because it needs, we got to do more. We really do. There's groups like the ACLJ, which is another link you can click on, that is trying to stop the attacks from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, because just here recently, when we talked about this, Jackson, Ohio, had the Freedom from Religion Foundation because the picture of Jesus was on the wall. Well, the update on that story is that they were able to keep the picture up. There are times when Christians need to act. There are times when Christians need to take a stand. I know it's nice to sit over here and pray in your closet. Yes, you're supposed to pray in your closet so that when you get out of the closet and you have to live in the world and not be of the world, you know how to respond. And you don't respond in anger and you don't respond in the wrong way. This is where you have to say, you know what you're talking about. You understand the Bible. This requires a lot of work. Lukewarm Christians are going to be eaten alive by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Totally eaten alive. This is why we're going to be talking more about stories like this so you can be prepared. You can understand what's going on. Because this does make a difference. That's right here in America. Not in a third world country. Not in another country. Like we're going to share another story from Egypt. That's America. The Freedom of Religion Foundation is attacking Christians in America because they believe that not just Christianity but any kind of religion should not exist in anything that's remotely near government. Schools, school buildings,
I honestly
churches,
feel like it doesn't even matter if it's government or not. It shouldn't exist at all.
But see, that's the point. That's their next step. When they get done conquering the government specter, then they're going to go after the public specter.
Meaning, I feel like they already are.
I would not doubt eventually they're going to tell Christians that you can't put a nativity outside of your church and your own church grounds. You think I'm making this story up. Wait 25 years from now and see if it's true. 50, 75. It will happen if we keep 15. Going the same direction. We have to take a point and say, enough is enough. And I'm not saying get all angry. I mean, you're going to get angry, you're going to get frustrated, but you got to go to the Word of God. And the Word of God says you must be knowledgeable on what the truths of the Bible is. And that's why we started the Cross Effects Church and then JMC Bites devotionals and the devotional blogs and everything else that we're doing. Because we want you to be prepared for what's going on. We do not want you to be ignorant. Brenda, any thoughts? No thoughts?
No thoughts.
All right, Egypt. We're going back to Egypt again. Again, another story. A Christian family.
An entire family.
A whole family was sentenced by the court. Sentenced by the court for 15 years from converting from Islam. I think that's why I know several people that now live in America that used to live in Iran.
Iran?
Yeah, they used to live in Iran.
That ain't Iran.
In Egypt.
Okay.
In other countries. I know both. I know this is Egypt, but I know people from Iran and Egypt that now live here in America. Some of them are professors, and they tell me they left their country because it was dangerous for their way of living. They were more westernized is the word. I don't think this is acceptable. I, as a Christian, I'm not going to sentence a Muslim to prison for 15 years for reading the Quran. I'm not going to do it. That's very controversial to say, but think about it for a second.
But this is what the Egyptian people voted in. They voted in the Muslim Brotherhood, and this is what is happening because they wanted, quote, a democracy, which honestly isn't a democracy. It's a farce democracy.
So they got this democracy going on overseas, right?
Not really, but
it's a democracy because it's like a majority vote. But what, a majority vote when it's the Muslim Brotherhood and they're making these decisions to do these kinds of behaviors, and you're stuck at what? No. It cannot work this way. This is why we must pray for Egypt. We must pray for the protection. ACLJ will have another story coming up soon. I'll try and find the link and I'll post it on our walls so you can take action and get our governments to help stop this stuff. There are ministries all over the world, and especially in Egypt and elsewhere, that are in danger for sharing the gospel. And here in America, we think we're comfortable, but it's coming to America too.
It's here.
In the form of the Freedom of Religion Foundation. And then other groups and people that want Christians to just not even go to church. They don't want you to do anything
All
anymore.
the freedom of religion is a bunch of communists.
No, that's not even...
But
no, they're atheists.
But the communists are also atheists, basically.
Most cases, yes.
Most cases, yes. That's what happened in Russia. When they went to communism, they got rid of all religion. It was illegal to go to a church. They barred up all the churches. They took all the land. They made everybody work on Sundays. So that's what it was. They outlawed, because your devotion is to communism. That's what they want, your devotion. That's what they want you to worship. They don't want you to look at any power higher than communism.
No.
That's why there's so much persecution in communism countries, like China.
Yeah.
And so on. And that's my opinion. Communism breeds atheism. And atheism breeds communism.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, like I said, I have ministry partners overseas, and they tell me how some of the churches have like partnered up with the government, and they're just not even really teaching about the Bible anymore. They're just doing what the government says all the time, 100%. There's no, well, the Bible says that's a sin, it doesn't matter anymore. There are churches being told you cannot teach about homosexuality. You can't, you know, sit there and then help people and forget. I mean,
the
it's
thing
just
that
getting
I always say,
out of control.
When people are afraid for their lives when it comes to sharing the gospel, remember, they can only kill you once.
Yeah, I mean the Bible. The Bible is so clear.
They can only kill you once.
So clear that it says, "For my name's sake, you'll be persecuted." Does that mean you have to sit here and be turmoil and just completely?
And Jesus said, "If they persecute me, they will persecute you."
He says you're supposed to have life and live it abundantly. You're supposed to be blessed and happy and have something. You know, in your life, to be able to be excited about things, to be able to do things in your life the right way, and be able to live abundantly, and be able to help others, and so on and so forth. But at the same point, you're going to have this opposition for some people that aren't Christians, and a lot of people that are Christians saying, "Stop, no, quit, no, no."
Well,
you know,
I want to say, when you say people that are Christians, as my grandma calls them, church people. They're church people. They're not really Christians.
They are Christians because we are all guilty of sin. We are all capable of committing any sin in the face of the book of the earth.
Okay. Jeremy.
What?
When you're talking about a Christian compared to somebody that says they're a Christian but doesn't, you can't call them a Christian. Their actions, you will know them by their fruit. Their fruit does not produce being a Christian, being Christ-like.
And that's the thing. There's two categories.
That's why we call them, by my grandmother referred them to church people.
Well, there's two kinds of Christians. I mean, for one thing, you're going to have your friends and your family and others. They're going to sit here and hurt you, right? They're going to commit sin, and it's going to happen as indirect to you. But the point is, what Miranda said was about the fruits. What do they do after they hurt you? Do they, the same day, the same month, come over and say, "I'm sorry for doing that"? Those are the exceptions to the rule. Everybody is going to do something wrong in their life. Nobody's perfect. We got to get this point clear because a lot of people are really cloudy on this. Then there's this other group that will go to church and they'll gossip and they'll complain and they'll gossip and complain and cheat and this and that and this and that, and they don't ever change. They go because, I don't know, they like the music or their family. They go for something, but they're not
They like to stir up trouble. That's why they go.
The devil goes to church every Sunday, okay?
Yes, he does.
I should know because I know Wiccans and Satanists and atheists and Christians and Muslims and Jews and everybody else in between goes to church. And some of them are in your church this Sunday. The church is a hospital for people that are sick. And if we don't take off this holier-than-thou stuff, no one's ever going to get well.
No.
And if everyone doesn't get on the same page and say, I'm screwed up, you're screwed up, let's take our screwed up, give it to the Lord, and let's cleanse ourselves, let's help cleanse one another, then there's always going to be this chaos and discord. And that's what the devil wants. He wants to discombobulate us. You know, he wants us to self-implode. He wants us to spontaneously combust. You know what that means? Spontaneous human combustion. It means you're caught on fire from the inside out. Well, the devil wants you to be on fire from the inside out and sin. The Holy Spirit wants you to be filled with the Spirit, so then you can produce fruits of the Spirit. So then others can see that you're a Christian, so you yourself can be a testimony of Christ. See, the point is, people are not living their lives to be a light and the salt of the earth to help anyone else, because they're too fixated on their problems because they haven't laid it down yet. And a lot of these stories, here's a good example that's going to drive everyone nuts. Have you looked at your paychecks this month?
Oh,
How many people's taxes increased? I have not heard one day. I have not heard anything about this.
How much are you not getting paid now?
I'm hearing about, well, my taxes went up. This is happening. That's happening. I know. What are we going to do? What are you going to do about it?
We were lied to. That was the biggest thing. I voted for Obama because he said he wasn't going to raise taxes on us, and he lied. Well, did you honestly think he was telling the truth after 4 years? You know, I mean,
here's the thing. I was watching the whole fiscal cliff, and the negotiations were, we're not going to tax the highest too much, but everybody else is not going to. What would have happened? It would have been $5,000 to $7,000, depending on where you're at, that you would have been taxed more. Instead of having the $5,000, you got $25,000 or $1,000 increase. Everyone's got some kind of increase because of that was the deal that was made.
Because they let the payroll tax hike. Well, there was a payroll tax like freeze, and they let that expire. Mm-hmm. That was the one thing Obama didn't tell you about.
So here's what needs to happen. Once again, we're back to being brothers and sisters in the body of Christ.
People are struggling.
More people are going to be struggling because of this. No one really can afford to pay more taxes, but as long as we continue to spend
Jeremy,
more money, the taxes have to go up.
There was somebody on my Facebook said they are having $250 more taken out of their. They're losing $250 a month out of their paycheck to this new tax hike. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money for a family to have to go without a month. You know, and this was somebody, you know, has a wife to take care of, and you know, has a family, and that's a lot of money. I mean, and of course, the more you make, the more they're going to take out. Mm-hmm. So another person, they said they were having $400 a month taken out, extra taken out, and you know, that really that's a lot to deal with. Yep. I mean, they keep saying, you know, well, we're almost out of this recession. In my opinion, we're going to go back into a recession because people are not going to be able to afford.
Two things are happening. If you're in a position where you're not getting a higher education, meaning college, you stopped at an associate degree, with everything going on, you now need a bachelor degree. Eventually, you'll need a master's degree. You look overseas, say Poland and other countries, to have a decent job, you have to have a minimum of a master's degree, which is paid by the government in their case. But even still,
but they have outlandish.
As long as spending continues to increase, the tax rate's going to increase.
Yeah.
And then I don't have a third hand.
In other countries, they're paying over 20%. In taxes.
So then we have this other level here, which I'm going to use with both hands, which is when I was younger, it was like $11,000 is what the poverty line used to be considered. Yeah. That line is now up here at $30,000. Yeah. $11,000 back in '93, 2013. Depending on if it's 1 or 2 or 3 person home, it's up to $30,000. I think it
also depends on where you live too.
Where you live, it can be up to $40,000 or $50,000, especially if you're in San Francisco and other places in California.
It's outrageous.
The point is when are we going to have some logical thought here and realize many Americans do not have bachelor degrees or master's degrees.
Yeah.
Many Americans are not making more than $100,000. They're not making more than $60,000. They're not making more than $40,000. Many are in between the $10,000 and $50,000 range. I know it's a big jump. But the problem is, if we keep raising taxes, most of those people aren't going to be able to afford what they need, and then almost up to $50,000. That sounds crazy. 50 years from now, $50,000 will be the minimum for poverty if we don't slow down.
Here's a question that keeps running through my mind. Okay, our government doesn't have to make a budget of its spending, but the American people do now. More and more because they're being taxed more and more. So they're budgeting out. Well, I can't go on a vacation. I'll go to the grocery store. Do I buy the fresh vegetables or do I buy the canned vegetables? I mean, Americans are having to cut back. Why doesn't our government?
So here's what happens. We have cities and states every year has to balance a budget. Okay, that's true. So they cut jobs, or they lower funding for programs, they cut hours, lower insurances, sometimes, in worst case scenarios, they'll lower your pay across the board, and people complain about that. But wouldn't you rather have less pay and have a job than your whole department's gone?
Oh, yeah.
We're getting some places, other places that I was looking at, I was reading the story today, that the stocks are at a 5-time high, which is a good sign here, because while the taxes and all this stuff are going up, the stocks are starting to go up, which means if the financial fiscal market can stimulate itself a little more and have a positive outlook. Because here's the weird thing about finances, and I've talked to enough people that are around the New York, California, Japan area. The stock market is almost equivalent to being involved in a casino. Yeah. It's like gambling.
It is gambling.
It's a form of gambling. You take a risk on investing your money in something and then they don't. So the root of the issue is fear. A recession and a depression is completely revolved around fear.
And greed.
Fear and greed. Because most people end up putting themselves in a little box and they don't help no one else but themselves. But if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be able to help yourself and help others. And I know a lot of people that watch this show are saying, Jeremy, why are you saying that? I don't have any money to help anyone. No, but you have a voice. You have a voice. You have a market of people that trust you, that talk to you, that you can share a message with. And I challenge you today to share the message of the gospel, to be able to help people in need. And if you can't help them, direct them to where the help can go. And if you don't know where the help is, that's the first step. Find out. I don't know where you live. You need to see where you live. Find out what is in your area and how can you help people. I'm not saying you have to be some big, famous guy. You don't have to be like me with a TV show or whatever and go on air every week and do stuff. No, you can just be yourself and you can do it in secret. If you notice, we don't always post when we donate to this person or that person because that's what the Bible says. Give in secret. Pray in secret. Pray in the closet. Give in the closet. And God can do so much more. I think, honestly, if we as Christians came together and said, what are the needs for the people? People could be fed. More specifically, people could probably get a job. I remember when I was a kid, and I don't hear about this at the college, I mowed grass. I pushed my lawnmower down the road 2 miles to mow someone's grass for $25. I don't think that's might be too expensive today. $25 for mowing.
That's normal.
That's about normal.
Yeah, if it's a regular size.
If you're an older person and you can't mow your grass, why don't you hire one of these 30-year-old men that just ran out of unemployment to mow some grass? I know it's cold, but it's not too cold to mow the grass. In some places, some places, you know, grass doesn't need to be mowed right now. What about painting a fence or you know, fixing up a room? How about going to someone's garage? Spring cleaning's coming up. Here's what I challenge you. I want you to make a plan. I want you to make a plan for your spring cleaning this summer. this spring, this end of winter, whatever. Pick a time. And I want you to say, I have these needs. And I want you to write down the needs, what you need done. Things that you cannot do by yourself. Things, title this, things that I cannot do by myself. Okay. Now that you got this title, write down your list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then write them down. Clean the garage. Go through magazines. Go through newspapers. Help with the computer. Whatever it is. And then if you're on Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, whatever, write the question. Hey, does anybody know how to fix fill in blank? Get a response. Hey, thank you for your response. If I paid you $10, could you come over to my house, if they live near you, of course, and help me with this? If you don't have the money, then I get it. If you have a need, say, hey, I need something. We here are not afraid to ask people for help. We've been asking for help from Miranda's illness till the sky is blue in the face, and we're continuing doing it. We're going to be giving some updates on that soon. And we'll show you that we are willing to do it, and we've been willing to help other people. There have been times that we've had to ask for help, and if we have to do it, why not you? It's only fair that I set the example and lead the charge, so to speak. So yeah, that's the other thing I want to talk about. Example point. Ministry fair at an army base connects faith and military together. This is Fort Campbell's Religious Support Office. Each pair of gray boots represents suicide. Randy, your thoughts?
I read an article. Well, you shared an article this week on our Eternal Flame News and on your Facebook page about military suicides are just
there are more military suicides than there are in 2012. More military suicides than there are actual casualties from the war in Afghanistan. More people killed themselves than got shot at, in other words.
Yeah. Because this war has gone on too long, and we keep sending our men and women into these war zones. How many times can you send a person into a war zone? How many years, consecutive years and tours of duty, can you send them, and therefore they crack? Because that's what's happening.
Here's one of the issues that's going on with it. Now the issue that I've seen, because I've talked to enough people in deployment, many other militaries outside of the U.S. have a transitional mental health program where you don't just come back from a tour of Iraq, get off the C-130, and here you are in New York City, and okay, go home for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's the most craziest thing I ever heard of.
But we do it here.
But we do that.
We do.
Mental health should be a #1 priority in the military.
I mean, unless they ask for the help, yeah, they're not offered it, like just saying, well, we're going to take you to a transitioning stage before we send you back to your house.
Yeah.
You know, no, if they don't ask for that help, then they just go back home.
Yeah. So here's what has to happen, and I've said this very clearly. First of all, mental health. When you just left your tour of Iraq or whatever, you know, you're kind of calm. Normally people that have PTSD don't feel it.
You wouldn't know they had it.
You don't know you have it until later, sometimes years later. So regardless if you're going to have it or not, it would be much easier for a person to transition from being in the war zone, being around weapons, being around regular people, being around cars, noises, all sorts of stuff. So then you can, you know, deprogram yourself from having to be in such a high level of maintenance. See, when you're involved in missionary work, we have a transitional program. So do some homeless shelters and others, where you go for training at the beginning. That's cool. Then you go in country. You have training. Then you do your event. Then training. Then feedback. And then training. Feedback. And training. Then event. Debrief in country. Then group debrief before you leave the country. Then you leave, and then you're in a set location. You have another debrief once you're back there. Then you debrief with other teams. Then you slowly start talking to other people. That's what needs to happen. I know it costs a lot more money, But you would catch a lot more people that have problems because they would be monitored a lot more and the signs of behavior would show up.
Well, and you got to also consider it isn't just PTSD. Some are dealing with traumatic brain injuries.
Yes. And some of these brain injuries do not show up until a couple of days, a few months later, because it's like our car accidents and everything. So many people told me last semester that I might have had a mild concussion or something because I was not coherent the first couple of weeks after the accident. I was slurring my speech. I was having trouble with memory. I didn't get the grades that I normally get. I didn't correspond many things. If you look back at the shows from September all the way until mid-December, you could probably even notice. We didn't
do a show.
Well, we had a few here and there. You could probably notice that I was having issues. And if it happened to me in a car accident, imagine in a war zone, you're getting blown around and you're seeing things and hearing things. Yeah. It's quite frightening. But that's why I'm sharing this photo that I showed you just a second ago. That if the military can partner with the church to help people from suicide, so that's one of the issues.
Yeah.
We have a government right now who's telling chaplains that you can't pray in Jesus' name. What's happened? Less chaplains, less people are wanting to become chaplains. That's what I've noticed. I don't want to be one because of that rule. So what's happened? We got less people being ministered to before the field, during the field, and after the field, not hearing about Jesus. And when you don't hear about Jesus, you're lost. And I'm not blaming and saying everyone that wasn't a Christian died. Yeah, some of them probably were Christians and things just got out of control. But the point is, many of them chose not to get any help because it wasn't there, or they personally just chose to shut down and cut everyone off. It's only one way or the other. But I would think if there was more Jesus Christ in the military available like that story, we'd have less suicides.
Yeah.
On the other hand, for those of you who don't, want to hear about Jesus Christ, then what about the transitional program I talked about? You can still have Jesus Christ there too, by the way, because that's what I would want. That's what I would hope to see. Because that's what needs to happen. We need to change the whole paradigm of how this works. Now, I have a prayer list that I want to share with you. And then Miranda's big story is going to get her all riled up. But last week was the Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and some turned it from a day into a week. And this is an article on the Christian Post, and I'm going to share with you the 7 things, and you can write these down if you want. And the light's in my eye and I'm blinding myself. Here you go. Hopefully you can read that. Hopefully you can read this. I'm getting it all ready so you can read it a lot better. Okay. There we go. I shrunk the screen down so you can read it better. Okay, here we go. Sex trafficking. Miranda, what is sex trafficking?
Where a person is forced into prostitution against their will. That's basically, in my opinion.
Yep, that's one form of it, yes. It can be domestic, pimp, slave type thing. It can be in your family. It can be a loved one, a friend, whatnot.
But somebody is forcing someone else into prostitution.
And it's not, and it is, I mean, human trafficking specifically goes way beyond just sex trafficking. It's also the selling and buying of people for various needs. It could be because they're selling maids or butlers or children
to do chores.
And it could be a gang related thing. It could be a fight club. Which we found out here in Chillicothe. Yes, there was a fight club that was selling children to fight in a barbed wire room.
And one child, it was his father made him do it.
Yeah, one child, it was his father made him do it. And he almost died in this barbed wire room. Yeah, we have that kind of stuff going on. We have children being sold because someone has a debt of gambling or whatever. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So here's the 7. Pray for children and adults that are trafficked to be rescued or set free. Pray for emotional and physical healing of the victims. Victims of sexually transmitted diseases will get adequate health care. Adult victims able to find good jobs. Pray for perpetrators to be convicted by the Holy Spirit regarding harm and human suffering they are causing, and to be brought to justice for their crimes. And this goes two different directions. Victims, perpetrators to hear the gospel, become born again, and be discipled by Christians, and pray for runaways to be able to return home and for these families to reconcile. You realize that you were listening to a man that was one step away from being human trafficked. And depending on who you talk to, I was, in a way, a victim of human trafficking. Depending on how you look at this, because my mother and the involvement around the drugs and alcohol and prostitution, at any moment, if I was in that environment much longer, things could have been very dangerous for me. In fact, it was dangerous for my mother because she participated in those kinds of behaviors. Miranda, your thoughts?
I can't say anything. I feel like you said it all.
You feel like I said it all? Really?
I really... It's a terrible thing that goes on in the world. I mean, just because slavery is outlawed doesn't mean it isn't, happening. It is happening.
Now here's the weird thing, and I'm not gonna...
It's not called slavery anymore, it's called human trafficking. That's what...
Well, that's the other thing. Here's the other thing I have to share with you guys. Do you know that human trafficking, slavery, because that's what it is in a way, because...
It is!
While some people end up becoming, full-time professional sex sellers, and they have their own business or whatnot, majority of them are not that way. They're involved in some kind of S&M or some kind of drug thing, gun thing, rich, whatever kind of person. But anyway, the point of the matter is, human trafficking, there are more slaves in the whole wide world than there was when William Wilberforce was fighting slavery, plus when Abraham Lincoln was trying to fight slavery. Combine all of those years together, and 2013 has more slaves than William Wilberforce and Abraham Lincoln combined. More slaves today. And I guarantee, from the people I've talked to, from the things I've studied and researched, it's in every state and just about almost every zip code in America. There's keywords you can search and you can find it. Just recently, there was a 17-year-old girl that someone that I know knows. And she got involved with a man. And she just up and disappeared for like several weeks. They just found her. We got stories right here in Chillicothe where kids have disappeared and we don't know where they're at. Then we got other stories where women are now older with several children and saying, "Hey, you know that viaduct over there by the railroad tracks? That's where I used to work when I was in my habit." I've heard all these kinds of stories. All these kinds of things. And while this is very shocking and freaks people out because it makes you uncomfortable, like, oh my God, I don't want to hear about it. Jesus Christ opens his hand and says, I want to love these people. Let me help these people. And what do? We shut them out. We block them out. We can't be doing that anymore. And of course, for men, especially because of women that are involved in human trafficking, I understand the whole, you don't need to be alone with a woman and it's dangerous to try to help women. I get that. That's why normally Miranda deals and stuff like that. I understand that. I'm not going to ask men or women to place themselves in a room with someone by themselves and do any of that weirdness. I get that part. There will be some links and stuff later on. We'll show you how you can help in this stuff. We've been sharing stories like this and links all the time on how to get help and what needs to happen and how we need to move beyond the different things that are happening in our lives. But if we don't change, then what good is it, What good is it that we, don't you know, put forth some effort. We have to put forth some effort. Well, I was going to have Miranda read something, and
just bring up the article. It's up there, right above that. There it is.
Okay, there we go.
Why don't you read that part?
We have our last story for the evening, and this is the controversial story because I'm hearing about it at the college. You're hearing about it all over the place. What is it? It's guns. What do we do about guns? There are infographics talking about how we know there are less people in America being killed by guns than people that starved or so on and so forth. I know all the statistics. I've seen all this stuff. But all the other things are not being talked about right now, and they're not being legislated on at this point. They probably will. So we have to talk about the guns. What about guns? Well, I'm going to show you eventually the what was on the Blaze about the executive actions Obama is doing on guns. A lot of people on the left and right are both mad. Those on the far left were saying he should have outlawed all guns. Those on the right are saying don't make no rules on guns. Brenda, your thoughts?
I think we should enforce the laws we already have instead of making new ones. Don't we have enough gun laws already? I mean, you're only hurting law-abiding citizens. You're not hurting the criminals. Criminals are always going to get their guns any way that they can. I mean, the people who have been doing these shooting massacres over the past year, they had mental problems. They should not even had guns. The one guy in the most recent one, the Sandy Hook massacre, he stole the guns his mother legally owned, shot and killed her, and then went on the shooting rampage. The guy, he illegally took the guns. So you can't, I mean, anybody could go break into somebody's house who owns a gun and steal it, and then go do something. You're only hurting the law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you could do in the case of that would be, and I think she had a gun rack case where it could have been locked. What if he finds the key? I mean, there's always...
Why wasn't there an armed guard at every door, you know, at the school? Why wasn't there an armed guard? If there had been an armed guard, we wouldn't have had that massacre.
And here's the argument I've heard at school. People have told me, well, Jeremy, if you have an armed guard at school and you have a crazy student, the student's going to go after the armed guard and walk up behind him, knock him out, and take his gun. You might have that happen. I get that. Okay. But the point is, if something else is going on...
He wouldn't... I mean, why are we saying it's all about guns? I mean, the first murder that was ever done in the Bible was done by a rock.
Yep.
A rock. Cain killed Abel with a rock. Why don't we outlaw rocks? I mean, that's how stupid we're getting. I mean, anything can be used as a weapon.
So here's the thing that's not being talked about, which is once again, is mental health. Case in point, you know, the one in Colorado, the book was sent to the school. People knew that something was going on, but overall, you did not know what could be done. Here's the other argument is, well, even if you do have someone have mental health, they're not going to tell a mental health person they want to hurt somebody if you change these laws. Yeah. Most people that I've counseled and tried to help, and I've heard about from the counseling world, will tell you that if someone is bent on hurting somebody, they're not going to hide it. They will gladly talk about these things.
Because and most of these guys have.
Then again, there's another group.
They posted about it. And
then there's other groups of people that, you know, they're like regular lower criminals where they want to hide their tracks and do stuff like that. But they don't do these big things. So I suggest that we do things for mental health to help people out more And that's my answer to it. I'm hoping.
But the other thing is, allow people to defend themselves. A person who is not allowed to defend themselves is always going to be a victim.
Yeah, I mean, a gun-free zone means that if you live in a gun-free zone, criminals are going to come to your place because you're not going to have. I mean, you might have a baseball bat, but.
Oh Lord!
You're not. I mean, if you're in the dark, you know, are you going to do run down the hallway swinging the baseball bat? And if you don't have a flashlight,
putting a sign up that says this is a gun-free area is just screaming, "Come kill me now!"
One of the things that my mom taught me when I was younger, and others have taught me, is that if someone's breaking in your house and they get in your house, have a shotgun. You set it at the end of the hallway. They hear this. Most people know that sound. They know what that is. And as soon as you hear it, you start shooting from the end of the hall, and they're going to run out. You might have a hole in your ball, but you might hit them too.
It's just like the mother, that mother. I don't know if it was in New Jersey or where it was, but she was home with her 2 children, and a guy breaks in their home. She calls her husband. Her husband is on the phone, one phone with her, and is on the other line with the police. Now, you would think, because she grabbed the gun, ran into the attic. An average thief would go in and grab what he wanted and leave. But no, this man went and looked for this woman and her children. And once he got in the attic and found them, she just started shooting him. She had to protect her children. And the other thing too is this man had a record. He'd been in prison multiple times for burglary and other things. I mean, why are we allowing these people out on the streets? I mean, oh well, he served his time. Okay, but so they served their time, but they're still a threat.
So that's the thing. I've had Christians tell me, well, you're not supposed to kill people.
So you're supposed to let them kill you.
I've never met a woman who told me that if there was a man that was trying to force himself upon her, that she wouldn't fight back. Never had one that has said that to me.
I'm going to tell you right now.
Be able to say, oh, I'm just going to just lay here and pray for him. I've never heard anyone tell me that.
When I was being raped multiple times, every time I was raped by my ex-husband, I fought. I didn't just lay there.
Oh, yeah.
I fought and fought and fought. Did it make a difference? No. But at least I knew that I had tried to stop it. I did everything I could. No. A person, your human instincts kick in, and your survival skills kick in. And you are going to defend yourself in any way that you can.
So here's how we're going to finish this, because...
well, are you going to read the executive orders?
Read the executive orders. I don't even know if I want to read the executive orders.
Are you going to read some?
Obama's wanting to have requiring federal agencies to make relevant data available to the background check system. Stuff about the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act. Of course, I knew that'd be added into it. Connected to the background check system. Number 4 is about the Attorney General to review cases. 5, more about the background check before getting a gun. A full background check.
Don't we already do that, though?
Not to the level I think he defines the word full background check. Then the ATF is supposed to publish things on guidance on background checks. Then a safe, responsible gun ownership campaign. Standards for locked gun safes. Presidential memorandum. And a DOJ report about all this. So the executive orders aren't really creepy.
But
that's it. These like executive orders...
It's like remaking the laws we already have, Jeremy.
Well, the point of these executive orders is, honestly, most of them, half of them, are about enforcing already existing laws because they're not being.
Then why don't we just enforce them instead of making new ones?
Because you gotta write up something to make people want to do something. It's really crazy that we have to go to that level, but that's the point. Now, you know, for those that were worried about, you know, if the guns are going to be taken away, one of the things that was talking is clips being from 10 bullets down to 6 or 7. Well, if you don't limit the amount of magazines someone can buy, all you got to do is buy an extra magazine and fix that problem. Click, pop, done. 3 seconds. That's all it takes to change a magazine. I learned to do that in boot camp. Pop, ready to go. So...
This is why we cannot allow our Second Amendment rights. We must fight for them. And, you know, we're going to end with the story of Wounded Knee.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more, if you want to see a movie that has to do with Wounded Knee and what happened, watch the movie. It's called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's a really good movie. What happened was in December 29th, back 122 years ago, this past December. Jeremy, I can't read what I'm supposed to be looking at. 297 Sioux Indians were massacred at Wounded Knee by government officials.
And this is on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota, by the way.
Yeah. These 297 people in their winter camp were murdered by federal agents and members of the 7th Cavalry, who had come to confiscate their firearms for, quote, their own safety and protection. The slaughter began after the majority of the Sioux had peacefully turned in their firearms. The Cavalry began shooting and managed to wipe out the entire camp. Here's the most horrific part about this. 200 of the 297 victims were women and children. About 40 members of the 7th Cavalry, is it I'm saying it
She's
wrong.
saying Cavalry. Yeah, it's the 7th Cavalry killed. Half of them were victims of fratricide from the Hotchkiss guns of their overzealous comrades-in-arms. 20 members of the 7th Cavalry Death Squad were deemed national heroes and awarded the Medal of Honor for their acts of cowardice. That was heroism.
They were
awarded medals around the same time doing some other things that happened. It's kind of a contradiction.
They shouldn't have ever been given those medals after what they did.
Because they never knew about it back then. They just
anyway, so we hear very little. I mean, I didn't really know about Wounded Knee until I saw the movie, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It's also a book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It talks about different things that the Indians went through. Why this is very sensitive to me is because I am part Cherokee. But I was never taught about Wounded Knee in my history class. How many of us were taught about how government officials murdered 297 Indians who were disarmed?
Hey, when I was in California, I learned about that at Two Rock and a bunch of other places. This is not an isolated incident.
Well,
Indians across America had their weapons taken, and many of them were just killed just to get them out of the way because there was an issue between the chiefs wanting to sell the land to the government, and they didn't want to sell the land to the government, so some of these cavalry people decided to get together and just kill them off and say, oh, they got killed by, other tribes, or, they left or whatever, and they hid the bodies and all that
stuff. So when we hear people say, well, we need to get rid of the Second Amendment, we need to take guns away from Americans, we've already seen this happen. Look at Wounded Knee. It happened. And what happened? They were massacred. 200 women and children were massacred. 97 men were massacred. Okay? You want to talk about mass shootings? Let's talk about Wounded Knee. That was government. That was our military. Did this.
Yeah. It's creepy, isn't it? So that's why you can't just tell. I mean, we are a unique country. We're not the only country that has this kind of law. There are others that do.
But we need to fight for our rights.
Countries like Switzerland and others that allow citizens to have a weapon to protect themselves. I get that, you're not supposed to go around just randomly shooting people. You're not supposed to do that. I know the Bible says, thou shalt not kill. But also the Bible at the same point talks about countries and people defending themselves. This is a really fine line subject of what do you do if your life is in danger? I mean, ultimately, I think Jesus, because his example, he would just let them, hurt people. I think he would be able to say something to calm them down, though. I think that's what Jesus would do. He wouldn't need a weapon to hurt anyone. But at the same point, in the Old and the New Testament, you see many scriptures talking about countries and people defending themselves. I mean, there's some cases where there's, like I said, that gray area where should you defend yourself, should you not? Like
you
for instance,
should always,
like for
if
instance
somebody's
in Texas,
going to hurt you, defend yourself. Why are we even discussing this?
Like for instance in Texas,
I don't understand why we're discussing whether or not people should defend themselves.
Here's the example in Texas I'll end with. There's always been this big thing going on about people, you know, going to court because someone just stepped into the house. Where's the point of entry? Where's the law? Because in Texas, someone enters and breaks your home, you legally have a right to defend yourself. If you heard that person kill him, you will not go to jail. But the argument's always been: does it happen on the grass, by the mailbox, at the road, the porch, 1 foot in the house, the hand in the house, the whole body in the house? The point is, you must have some logic here. You know, Lord forbid that you have to hurt someone. I don't want you to kill anyone. I don't want you to have to hurt anyone at all. But you aren't supposed to act first. I was taught how to defend myself, how to block. You know, block, kind of like judo stuff. I don't initiate stuff. If somebody comes swinging at me, I'm going to block it. I'm going to trip them, and I'm going to run. I'm not going to turn around and start. There's things that you have to do. I know as a ministry, talking about self-defense and shooting and stuff is a taboo subject. I get it.
But Christians are talking about this.
But Christians are talking about it. Because it is affecting us. But then there's other groups that are saying, well, I don't know what we should do. Well, I'm not going to talk about it. It has to be talked about. You have to understand that, you know,
okay,
more people are going to get hurt.
The reason our founding fathers, why our founding fathers wrote the Constitution the way they did was because they said these are alienable rights. Yep. These are God-given rights. Yep. And the Second Amendment to them is a God-given right to protect yourself and to protect your family. And there we are.
And that's the point. You're supposed to be able to defend yourself in case anything happens. And you take that away, then, you know, we're not the American.
I said alienable. It's unalienable rights.
And then that's the thing. We have to be able to protect ourselves. We have to be able to do the things. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pray for all the gun owners. Legal, non-legal, criminal, non-criminal. Pray for the legislation. Pray for the different people that are doing these different things. Because the future of America is always at stake. Because there's always new laws, always new stuff. This isn't some kind of like shock, scare tactic message. This is a simplistic message today. We believe that, you know, people should have a right, you know, to own guns. Like I have had family members and others that go hunting.
My grandfather takes a gun out when he takes his dogs out to go to the potty because they have coyotes.
Yeah. So
he takes the gun out so that in case the coyote comes up, he can kill the coyote so don't get the dog because they're tiny little dogs.
Yeah. So I mean, there's points where this completely makes sense. And I wanted it to be cut clear and dry so people understood where our motives, our thoughts, our beliefs were. So there's no room for error of trying to misconstrue our message here. Because the enemy is very good at trying to cause confusion, and I don't want that to happen. That's why I'm going so much in depth to this. That's why the show went over at 8 minutes. And this is the end of JMC Live tonight. It is the end of tonight's program. Thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. That will be next week, the end of January. That will be the 26th January next week at 9 p.m. See you soon. God bless.